He paid $1,154 for 70 spells to control his wife. When magic didn't work, he bought a gun. 9 shots rang out on January 7, 2021. And Maya Millete was never seen again. January 7, 2021. 10 a.m. Maya Millete, 39 years old, made a phone call that would cost her life. She dialed Broughton Law Office in Chula Vista. Spoke with Destiny Johnson, the intake coordinator. "I need to schedule an appointment with a divorce attorney," Maya said. After 21 years of marriage, she was done. Done with Larry's controlling behavior. Done with being monitored, tracked, isolated. Done with a man who refused to let her have a life outside of being his wife. Maya had been planning this moment for weeks. Quietly, carefully. The way women in dangerous marriages have to plan when they know leaving might be the thing that gets them killed. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Because what Larry did in the 24 hours after Maya disappeared will prove exactly how he made her vanish. The 444 unaccounted miles. The 11 hours without his phone. The missing .40 caliber handgun. And the body no one has found in 4 years of searching. She told her family she was afraid. Her sister Marie-Chris Druelet remembered Maya's exact words. "If anything happens to me, it would be Larry." 7 hours after that phone call to the divorce attorney, Maya was dead. But to understand how it got to this point, you have to go back to the beginning. To when Larry and Maya were just teenagers. To before the obsession. Before the violence. Before everything turned dark. They met in high school in Hawaii. 2 kids who should have had their whole lives ahead of them. But Larry Millete already had a violent past. In 1997, when he was just a teenager, Larry was involved in a gang-related stabbing in San Diego. He stabbed another teenager and was sent to juvenile hall. After his release, his family moved him to Hawaii, hoping a fresh start would change him. That's where he met Maya. She was sweet, kind, a Filipino-American girl with dreams of a good life. Larry seemed charming at first, attentive, protective in a way that felt like love rather than control. They married young, May 12, 2000. Larry was only 18 years old. Maya was barely older. Larry joined the U.S. Navy that same year. Served from 2000 to 2005 as a hospital corpsman and optician. Received a pistol sharpshooter ribbon, trained with firearms. Skilled with weapons. Maya graduated from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Smart, educated, capable of so much more than being Larry's wife. They settled in Chula Vista, California after Larry's Navy discharge. Started a family. Had 3 children. From the outside, they looked like the perfect American family. Happy, stable, building a life together. But inside that house, things were very different. By 2019, Larry's controlling behavior had escalated to terrifying levels. He showed up unannounced at Maya's workplace, the Naval Information Warfare Center where she worked as a civilian contractor. Would arrive without warning, demanding to know who she'd been talking to, making scenes in front of her colleagues. Maya's co-workers noticed, saw how uncomfortable she became when Larry appeared, how she'd tense up when he texted or called. Larry didn't just show up. He emailed Maya's co-worker Derek Sopp, demanding that a male employee be moved to a different division. Accused Maya of having inappropriate relationships with male co-workers. Wanted them separated from her. At home, the abuse was worse. According to reports that would later surface, Larry once choked Maya until she passed out. Put his hands around her throat and squeezed until she lost consciousness. Then acted like nothing had happened when she came to. By 2020, Maya was trying to escape. She moved in with her sister-in-law Genesis, desperately needing space, needing to clear her head, needing to figure out how to leave permanently. Genesis would later testify about what she witnessed. Maya arrived visibly upset. Looked like she'd been crying a long time. She was terrified but trying to be strong, trying to plan her next move. But Larry came and got her. Showed up at Genesis's house, demanded Maya come home, and somehow, through manipulation, through threats, through whatever hold he had over her, He convinced her to return. Maya went back. Back to the house where she'd been choked. Back to the man who monitored her every move. Back to a marriage that was killing her slowly. She tried one more time in late 2020 to get away. Told Larry she wanted a divorce. Wanted to take the kids and start over. That's when Larry started buying spells. January 7th, 2021. The day everything came to a head. At 9:57 p.m. that night, neighbors heard 9 loud bangs coming from the Millete house at 2697 Paseo Los Gatos. Not firecrackers. Not a car backfiring. 9 distinct sounds that made windows rattle and dogs bark. Gunshots. Nobody called 911. This was Southern California, barely 10 miles from the Mexican border. Loud noises happened sometimes. People minded their business. But inside that house, something terrible had just happened. Maya Millete, mother to 3 children aged 4, 10, and 11, Navy civilian contractor, daughter, sister, friend, had spent her last moments alive. And the man who killed her was about to spend the next 11 hours making sure her body would never be found. Surveillance cameras captured something odd at 9:57 p.m. Maya's 3 children playing outside in the front yard. 10 p.m. on a school night in January. 3 young children outside in the dark while their parents were supposedly inside. Why would Larry send his kids outside at that exact moment? Because he needed them out of the house. Needed them not to see what he was doing. Needed them far enough away that they wouldn't hear their mother's final moments. January 8th, 2021. The day after. The day Larry had to make Maya disappear. Surveillance cameras captured a black Lexus SUV, leaving the Millete home at approximately 6:45 a.m. The driver's identity couldn't be confirmed, but prosecutors allege it was Larry. His phone was off, completely powered down from 6:45 a.m. until approximately 6:30 p.m. 11 hours and 45 minutes without his phone. For a man who was notoriously controlling, who tracked Maya's every movement, who demanded to know where she was at all times, Larry suddenly decided to leave the house without his phone for almost 12 hours. Where did he go? What was he doing? Larry's story changed multiple times. He told Maya's family on January 8th that Maya was locked in a room by herself since the previous day, as if she'd voluntarily isolated herself. On January 9th, he told a neighbor something different. Said he'd taken the Lexus to Anza Desert State Park, a vast desert area east of San Diego. Remote, desolate, the kind of place where you could bury something and no one would ever find it. Then he asked that neighbor to detail the vehicle, to clean it thoroughly inside and out, to remove any trace evidence that might remain. When investigators later pressed Larry about January 8th, he changed his story again. First said he went to work, then said he went to Solana Beach with his 4-year-old son Lazarus. Spent the whole day at the beach feeding his son French fries. But when asked to show where on a map, Larry pointed to Torrey Pines State Beach, a completely different location from Solana Beach. Investigators found no evidence Larry was at either beach that day. No surveillance footage. No witnesses. No credit card transactions. No photos on his phone. Nothing. What they did find. The family's Lexus had traveled significantly more miles than any beach trip would account for. Miles that lined up with a drive to the desert and back. Miles that suggested Larry had disposed of Maya's body in a remote location during those 11 hours. And when Larry returned home that evening around 6 p.m., his phone suddenly reappeared. He powered it back on, logged back into his digital life as if those 11 hours hadn't happened. But Maya was gone. January 9th, 2021. Maya's family started to panic. She wasn't answering texts, wasn't responding to calls. That wasn't like Maya. She always stayed in contact with her parents, her siblings, her extended family. Even during the worst times in her marriage, she checked in daily. Her parents, who lived in the Philippines, tried calling the house. Larry answered. "Where's Maya?" they asked, voices tight with worry. "She went to visit friends," Larry said calmly. "She needed a break. She'll be back soon." But when they asked which friends, Larry was vague. When they asked when she'd be back, he had no specific answer. When they pressed him for details, he became defensive, angry that they were questioning him. That's when Maya's family knew something was desperately wrong. Chris, Maya's sister who lived in nearby Riverside, drove to the house, found Larry there with the kids. No, Maya. Where is she? Chris demanded, searching the house with her eyes. She left, Larry said, his tone flat, emotionless. She needed space. She'll come back when she's ready. She wouldn't leave her kids. You know Maya would never do that. Larry just shrugged. She did. But Chris knew her sister. Maya's children were her entire world. She'd been planning to leave Larry, yes, but she was planning to take the kids with her. She would never, ever abandon them. By January 10th, the family was frantic. They filed a missing person report with the Chula Vista Police Department, told investigators everything they knew. The planned divorce, Larry's controlling behavior, Larry's history of violence, Maya's fear, her last words, "If anything happens to me, it would be Larry." The police began their investigation, started by interviewing Larry. His story kept changing. First version, Maya went hiking alone. She loved hiking, might have gotten lost or hurt on the trails around Otay Lakes. Second version, Maya went to visit a friend. He didn't know which friend exactly, couldn't provide a name or location. Third version, Maya had a mental health crisis and left to clear her head, needed time alone to think. Fourth version, Maya was having an affair with a coworker and ran off with him. She'd been cheating for months and finally left. Each story contradicted the last. Each version raised more questions than it answered. And through it all, Larry showed no concern for his missing wife. No frantic searching. No desperate pleas for her to come home. No emotional breakdown over her disappearance. Just calm, collected explanations that Maya had left of her own free will. Detectives knew what that meant. 20 years of investigating missing persons cases teaches you to recognize the signs. When a spouse disappears and the other spouse isn't frantically searching, isn't cooperating with police, isn't doing everything possible to find them, that spouse usually knows exactly where the missing person is, because they put them there. The Chula Vista Police Department launched a massive search. Volunteers combed nearby parks and hiking trails. Search and rescue teams scoured Otay Lakes, an area Maya had hiked in the past. Divers checked reservoirs. Helicopters surveyed remote desert areas. Nothing. No trace of Maya Millete. No phone pings. No credit card usage. No social media activity. No contact with family or friends. A 39-year-old woman doesn't just vanish into thin air. Especially not a woman who was planning to file for divorce and take her children. Especially not a woman who'd told her family, "If anything happens to me, it would be Larry." Investigators started digging into Larry's background, into the marriage, into what had really been happening inside that house on Paseo Los Gatos in the months before Maya disappeared. What they found would shock even experienced homicide detectives. Larry Millete wasn't just a controlling husband. He'd been actively working to prevent Maya from leaving through methods so bizarre, so desperate, that they revealed the depths of his obsession. He'd hired spellcasters, multiple spellcasters, paid them thousands of dollars to perform rituals that would keep Maya trapped in the marriage. And investigators had the receipts, the emails, the payment records, everything Larry thought he'd hidden. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Detective Jesse Vicente from the Chula Vista Police Department sat in the station on January 15, 2021, scrolling through bank records and email accounts investigators had obtained through search warrants. What Vicente found wasn't evidence of where Maya went. It was evidence of how far Larry had gone to keep her from leaving. Transaction after transaction to websites with names like Spellcaster Maxim, Black Magic Specialist, Voodoo Love Spells. Payments ranging from $20 to $400. Dozens of them stretching back months. The total amount Larry had spent, $1,154.05, for 70 different spells. Vicente kept scrolling, kept reading. The emails got darker, more disturbing. more violent as Larry's desperation grew. The emails started in September 2020. That's when Maya had first mentioned divorce seriously. When she told Larry she was unhappy and wanted out. Larry's response wasn't to work on the marriage, wasn't to go to counseling, wasn't to ask what he could change to make her happy. His response was to search for spellcasters who could control his wife through magic. District Attorney's Office investigator James Rhodes would later testify in court about what those emails revealed. The desperation, the escalation, the increasingly dark requests that showed a man losing his grip on reality. September 2020. Larry's first email to a spellcaster. He wrote seeking a powerful love spell to bind my wife, Maya Millete, to me forever and to keep her from hurting our family even further. He paid $149. Waited for the spell to manifest. Nothing changed. Maya continued making plans to leave. So Larry bought another spell. And another. And another. October 2020. Larry's emails became more aggressive. He wasn't asking for love spells anymore. He was asking for spells to punish Maya. To make her sick. To make her dependent on him. According to testimony, some of the spells he sought were for causing physical harm, an accident to cripple or cause bodily harm, and even giving someone cancer. One email requested, "Please give her the worst nightmares." Another, "Hex to have her hurt enough that she will have to depend on me." Larry was literally paying strangers on the internet to curse his wife, to make her so miserable, so sick, so dependent that she couldn't leave him. But it gets worse. In November 2020, Larry sent an email that revealed the depths of his willingness to harm Maya. Maybe an accident or broken bone. He was asking spellcasters to cause Maya physical injury, to hurt her badly enough that she'd be bedridden, unable to leave, forced to rely on him for care. By December 2020, Larry knew the spells weren't working. Maya had officially retained a divorce attorney. She told family members she was filing papers after the holidays. Larry found out. He'd been monitoring her phone, her computer, her conversations. He knew she'd hired an attorney, knew the divorce was imminent. His emails became frantic. December 2020. Please punish May and incapacitate her enough so she can't leave the house. It's time to take the gloves off. Read that again. It's time to take the gloves off. Larry wasn't just asking for spells anymore. He was declaring war on his wife. But here's what really shows Larry believed in these spells. He left a review. Like he was rating a restaurant on Yelp. Larry left a public review for one of the spellcasters. "She is kind, professional, and courteous. My casting has not yet manifested, but I'm really hoping and counting on it." Larry Millete, a grown man, a Navy veteran, a father of 3, genuinely believed magic was real, believed strangers on the internet could curse his wife, believed spending over $1,000 on spells would keep Maya from leaving. And when you believe in magic that strongly, what else might you believe? What else might you be willing to do? Investigators found something else in Larry's home that confirmed his belief in the occult. A witchcraft altar. Photos taken during the search warrant execution showed a dedicated space in the house set up for rituals. Candles, crystals, photos of Maya, items used in spell work. Larry had created a shrine to controlling his wife. January 7, 2021. At 4:40 p.m., just hours before Maya disappeared, Larry sent his last email to a spellcaster. He sought to make her miserable without me. That was the last spell Larry ever purchased regarding Maya. The next day, January 8th, he sent a different kind of email, asking a spellcaster to remove any hexes from Maya and move them to the man Larry believed Maya was having an affair with. Why the sudden change? Why stop trying to control Maya and start targeting someone else? Because Maya was already gone. Prosecutors would later argue this email pattern proved Larry's guilt. He paid for spells to control Maya right up until the night she disappeared. Then he suddenly stopped. No more spells for Maya. No more attempts to keep her in the marriage. Because dead wives don't need controlling. But the spellcaster emails weren't the only disturbing evidence investigators found on Larry's devices. His internet search history revealed another layer of obsession. Another method of control Larry had been using while Maya was still alive. And it was even more sinister than the spells. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. District Attorney Investigator Matthew Grinley sat at his desk reviewing Larry's internet search history. Month after month of searches revealing a man obsessed with controlling his wife through any means necessary. The searches started innocently enough. In early 2020, Larry was Googling things like, how to save your marriage, and why doesn't my wife love me anymore? But by March 2020, the searches took a dark turn. Plants you take to never wake up. Larry was researching ways to make Maya permanently unconscious, to put her in a coma, to render her so incapacitated she'd be completely dependent on him. November 2020, water hemlock, a deadly poison, one of the most toxic plants in North America, causes violent seizures, respiratory failure, death within hours. December 2020, my wife doesn't want me to touch her. Then immediately after, flunitrazepam, rohypnol, diphenhydramine, date rape drugs, sedatives, substances used to render someone unconscious without their knowledge. Larry wasn't just thinking about controlling Maya through magic. He was researching how to drug her, how to poison her, how to make her so incapacitated she couldn't resist him. But Grinley found something else in those searches. Something that revealed Larry had been psychologically torturing Maya for months before her disappearance. Subliminal wife training. Larry had been searching for speakers that could play hidden messages throughout the house. Messages buried in white noise. Messages designed to bypass conscious awareness and plant suggestions directly into Maya's subconscious mind. He'd found what he was looking for. Maya's friend Christine Timmers would later testify about what Maya discovered in August 2020. Maya had been cleaning the bedroom when she found a cell phone hidden beneath her bed. Not her phone. Not Larry's regular phone. A burner phone tucked under the mattress where she'd never think to look. The phone was playing something. White noise at first. But when Maya listened closely, she could hear words buried underneath. Faint. Almost imperceptible. But there. I love you. Love me. Stay with me. Don't leave. Over and over. Hour after hour. Night after night while Maya slept. Messages playing on a loop, trying to reprogram her mind. When Maya confronted Larry about it, he didn't deny it. Didn't apologize. Didn't act like there was anything wrong with what he'd done. He explained it was playing subliminal messages designed to make her love him again. Said he'd read online that subliminal programming could change someone's feelings. Make them fall back in love. Make them stay in a marriage they wanted to leave. Larry had been literally trying to brainwash his wife while she slept. Investigators found evidence Larry had placed multiple speakers throughout the house. In the bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, all connected, all playing the same subliminal messages at frequencies designed to bypass conscious awareness. This wasn't love. This was psychological warfare. But Larry's control didn't stop at subliminal messages. Timmers testified about another incident from August 2020. Maya had found a different cell phone, this one hidden in her car. Larry had planted it there to track her movements. A GPS tracking device disguised as a phone, telling Larry everywhere Maya went, everyone she met, every moment she spent away from him. Maya's response? She locked herself in a room of the house and called Timmers, crying and desperate. Larry could be heard in the background pounding on the door, demanding she open it. "Let me in," he shouted. "Open this door right now." Maya stayed locked inside, whispering to Timmers on the phone, terrified, trapped in her own home with no way to escape. At some point that day, Maya posted a photograph to social media, a picture of the door she'd locked herself behind. She claimed it was an accidental post, deleted it quickly, but Timmers testified that Maya's friends wondered if that was a cry for help. It was a desperate signal to the outside world that something was very wrong inside the Millete house. Larry's brother-in-law, J. Pi Tabalanza, Maya's older brother, testified about another disturbing conversation that revealed how far Larry was willing to go. In 2020, Larry approached J-Pie with a proposition. Did J-Pie know anyone who could get the guy Larry suspected Maya was having an affair with? Larry offered to pay $20,000, plus an additional $4,000 for all your troubles. $24,000 to hurt or possibly kill the man Larry believed Maya was seeing. J-Pie refused, didn't want anything to do with it, didn't tell Maya about the conversation, didn't report it to police. Looking back now, he wishes he had. Wishes he'd taken that threat seriously. Wishes he'd warned someone that Larry was capable of violence. Because Larry was escalating. The spells weren't working. The subliminal messages weren't working. The tracking devices weren't stopping Maya from planning to leave. So Larry's thoughts turned from magic and mind control to something more concrete. Physical violence. On January 6, 2021, one day before Maya disappeared, Larry was texting with his work supervisor. The supervisor testified that Larry regularly confided in him about Maya's desire for divorce. That day, Larry showed his supervisor screenshots of text messages Maya had sent him. One message from Maya read, "I don't want to be your wife anymore. I'm filing whether you like it or not. I should have left a long time ago, and this time I'm not going to look back and say that again." Maya was done. Absolutely done. No more second chances. No more waiting. She was filing for divorce and Larry couldn't stop her. Larry called off work that day because he was mentally, physically, and emotionally spent. On January 7th, the day Maya disappeared, Larry didn't go to work either. When his supervisor asked when he was coming in, Larry texted back 2 words that would later seem prophetic. "I'm not right." The supervisor tried to help. Asked, "Have you eaten? Do you need anything?" Larry's response, "I'm about to lose it." Hours later, 9 gunshots rang out from the Millete house. Larry had lost it, and Maya paid with her life. When investigators executed search warrants on the Millete home in late January 2021, they were looking for anything that could tell them what happened to Maya. What they found painted a picture of violence, a planning, of a man who'd prepared for this moment and tried to cover his tracks. Chula Vista forensics expert David Garber testified about processing the scene. He took approximately 300 photographs documenting every room, every surface, every potential piece of evidence. The house looked normal at first glance, clean, organized, like any suburban family home. But forensic investigators know where to look, know what signs to search for, know that blood and violence leave traces no amount of cleaning can completely remove. In the master bathroom, Garber found blood spatter on the walls, small droplets, consistent with cast off from a violent impact. Someone bleeding, someone hurt. The blood was tested. Female. But DNA analysis revealed it wasn't Maya's blood. It belonged to someone else, likely from an old injury or nosebleed from one of the children. But the fact that Larry had left that blood there while presumably cleaning up Maya's blood told investigators something important. He'd been selective about what he cleaned, focused, methodical. A handwritten letter was found in the dresser of the main bedroom, addressed to Larry, signed Maya. The contents, according to testimony, painted an ugly picture of their marriage. Maya had documented Larry's abuse, his controlling behavior, his violence. She'd written it down, perhaps thinking it would matter someday, perhaps hoping it would protect her if Larry ever hurt her. Didn't. Inside Larry's gun safe, investigators found firearms, a shotgun and a rifle, both accounted for in his registered weapons list, both legally owned, both still there. But according to purchase records, Larry owned additional guns. Specifically, he'd purchased a Springfield XDM .40 caliber handgun in 2020. Powerful pistol, the same caliber that would produce the kind of loud bangs neighbors heard on January 7th. That gun wasn't in the safe. Larry claimed he'd sold it months earlier. Private sale to someone he'd met through a gun forum. Said he didn't have any documentation because California law doesn't require paperwork for private sales between licensed owners, which was technically true. But investigators didn't believe him. They checked every gun store, shooting range and firearms dealer in San Diego County. Requested transaction logs from online gun forums where Larry had accounts. Interviewed everyone who'd ever bought or sold firearms to him. Nobody had purchased a .40 caliber Springfield XDM from Larry Millete. No record of sale existed anywhere. No forum posts advertising it. No witnesses who'd seen the transaction. No bill of sale. No transfer paperwork. Nothing. The gun had disappeared. Just like Maya. Prosecutors would later argue that Larry used that .40 caliber to shoot Maya 9 times on January 7th. Then disposed of the weapon along with her body during those 11 hours on January 8th. But perhaps the most damning evidence came from Larry's phone and computer. From the digital trail he'd left in the weeks and months before Maya vanished. Detective Lorenzo Ruiz testified about Larry's internet search history. Searches that revealed a mind moving from magical thinking to concrete planning. While prosecutors haven't released the full list of searches publicly to protect the integrity of the ongoing case, testimony indicated Larry had been researching methods and means that suggested he was preparing to dispose of a body. Searches about remote desert areas. Searches about decomposition rates. Searches about how deep to bury something so it won't be found. All made before Maya disappeared. And then there was January 8th, the day after Maya vanished. The day Larry's every move was documented by surveillance cameras and digital records. Surveillance footage showed the black Lexus SUV leaving the Millete home at 6:45 a.m. Larry's phone was powered off from that exact moment until approximately 6:30 p.m. Nearly 12 hours of being completely unreachable. Throughout that day, Larry's work supervisor and family members tried desperately to contact him. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every text went undelivered. Every attempt to reach him failed. Where was Larry for those 11 hours and 45 minutes? His story changed every time he was asked. First version, he went to work. Dropped Lazarus off at daycare early. Second version, he went to Solana Beach with Lazarus. Spent the day at the beach. Third version, he went to Torrey Pines State Beach instead. A different location entirely. Fourth version to neighbor, he went to Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. Detective Vicente testified, investigators could not find any evidence confirming Millete was at the beach that day. No surveillance footage. No witnesses. No credit card transactions. Nothing. But investigators did find evidence of where Larry really went. The family's Lexus had traveled significantly more miles than any beach trip would account for. Miles that lined up perfectly with a drive to the desert and back. Miles that suggested Larry had disposed of Maya's body in a remote location during those 11 hours. J.P. Tabalanza testified about how Larry's story kept changing. First Larry said work and daycare. Then he said beach and French fries. The stories didn't match. Didn't make sense. I get a weird feeling already when he changed that story, J.P. testified. That weird feeling was justified. Because while Larry claimed to be at the beach feeding his son French fries, he was actually disposing of his wife's body in the desert. And there's one more piece of evidence that proved Maya didn't leave voluntarily. Her phone. During the preliminary hearing in January 2023, prosecutors presented something Maya herself had recorded before she disappeared. A 2-minute video that appeared to have been secretly recorded by Maya. An argument between her and Larry. The first time during the hearing that Maya's voice was heard in the courtroom. The couple argued about an affair Larry suspected she'd had with a coworker. I don't know what you guys were doing 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night all the time, Larry said on the video, his voice angry and accusatory. And your projects and your team projects, mentoring and all that stuff. Maya responded, her voice defensive but trying to stay calm. I'm asking you why you would say stuff like that. And then you go there, and then you want to be together. The video came from Maya's iPhone, specifically from her iCloud account that investigators accessed after her disappearance. Why would Maya secretly record her husband? What was she afraid of? What was she trying to preserve as evidence in case something happened to her? The answers to those questions died with her on January 7th, 2021. But that video, along with the letter she wrote, the conversations she had with friends, the warnings she gave her family, Proves Maya knew Larry was dangerous. Knew he might kill her. Knew she needed evidence. She just didn't get out fast enough. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. October 19th, 2021. 9 months after Maya disappeared. 9 months of searching. 9 months of Larry living in that house with his children, telling anyone who asked that Maya had abandoned them. At 7:12 a.m., a convoy of law enforcement vehicles converged on 2697 Paseo Los Gatos. Chula Vista PD, FBI, San Diego County Sheriff's Department. Over 20 officers executing an arrest warrant. Detective Vicente approached the door, knocked, waited. Larry answered, already knowing why they were there. You don't get 20 cops at your door at 7 a.m. for a welfare check. Larry Millete, you're under arrest for the murder of Maya Millete. Larry said nothing. No protests of innocence. No demands to know what evidence they had. No emotional reaction at all. He simply held out his hands for the handcuffs. Showed no emotion as he was led to a patrol car while his 3 children watched from inside the house, confused and terrified. Their father being taken away. Their mother already gone. Their entire world collapsing. District Attorney Summer Stephan held a press conference that afternoon. Media from across the country had gathered, cameras ready, questions prepared. In homicide cases, there is often a triggering event, Stephan explained. Something that causes the suspect to act. In this case, on January 7th, 2021, May took that step. And the last call recorded that May made was to a divorce attorney. The triggering event. The phone call at 10 a.m. that set everything in motion. The appointment Maya made that told Larry she was serious about leaving. That she wasn't backing down this time. So he killed her. Larry was charged with first-degree murder and illegal possession of an assault weapon. The second charge came from investigators' discovery that Larry had owned firearms that violated California's assault weapons laws. Bail was set at $2 million. Larry couldn't pay. He was remanded to San Diego County Jail to await trial. The children were immediately removed from his custody, placed temporarily with Maya's sister Maricris and her husband Richard in Riverside. And their Larry has remained, over 4 years in jail. 4 years awaiting a trial that has been delayed again and again and again. But before the trial could happen, there was the preliminary hearing. A crucial proceeding where prosecutors had to prove they had enough evidence to proceed with murder charges. The hearing began in January 2023. Judge Dwayne Mooring presiding. For 2 weeks, the courtroom heard testimony from 25 prosecution witnesses, each one adding another piece to the puzzle. Each one proving that Larry Millete had murdered his wife. Destiny Johnson from Broughton Law Office testified Maya had called to schedule a divorce appointment on January 7th at 10 a.m., just hours before she died. Maricris testified about Maya's deteriorating marriage. About the New Year's trip to Glamis where Maya told family she was ready to divorce Larry and wasn't waiting anymore. About how Maya asked her sisters for money to pay for a divorce attorney. Said she would pawn her expensive Rolexes and Louis Vuitton purses if she had to. Maya was desperate to get out, willing to give up everything she owned just to be free from Larry, just to protect her children from witnessing any more of his abuse. Christine Timmers testified about the hidden phone playing subliminal messages, about Maya locking herself in a room crying and desperate, about finding the tracking device in her car. She was terrified, Timmers told the court. She knew Larry was monitoring everything. She felt trapped. J.P. Tabalanza testified about Larry's story changing regarding January 8th, about the offer to pay $20,000 to get the guy Larry thought Maya was seeing. When someone changes their story that many times, J.P. said, you know they're lying. You know they're hiding something. Investigator James Rhodes testified about the 70 spells Larry purchased. The $1,154.05 spent trying to control Maya through magic. The increasingly violent requests. The review Larry left for the spellcaster. Rhodes read some of the emails out loud in court. The courtroom fell silent as people heard Larry's own words asking spellcasters to hurt Maya. to break her bones, to give her cancer, to make her so miserable she couldn't function. Investigator Matthew Grinley testified about Larry's phone being off for 11 hours on January 8th. About the text messages to Larry's supervisor, "I'm not right. I'm about to lose it." Those texts were sent hours before Maya disappeared, Grinley explained. Larry was telling people he was losing control, and then Maya vanished. Detective Lorenzo Ruiz testified about searches for subliminal wife training, about the speakers hidden throughout the house, about the searches for poison plants and date rape drugs. Detective Jesse Vicente testified that he believed Larry murdered Maya, that he didn't believe Maya disappeared mysteriously. "I have no proof of life for May if she were to leave the house," Vicente stated firmly. "I spoke to numerous witnesses who told me this is not something she would do. Maya lived for her children. She would not voluntarily leave them. I have no evidence indicating May was preparing to flee from her family. I do know that Larry and her had an argument that evening of January 7th, is what he told me, and he was the last one to see her." Defense attorney Benita Martinez tried to create reasonable doubt, argued Maya had run away, that she'd been having an affair with a coworker, that Larry had threatened to reopen an investigation at Maya's workplace that would have revealed Maya lied to NCIS about something. "She was in a tight spot," Martinez argued. "She had reasons to disappear. She had means and opportunity to leave." But prosecutors pointed out the glaring holes in that theory. Maya Millete did not just fall off the face of the earth, prosecutor Christy Bowles argued. Her phone was found in the house, never used again after January 7th. No bank activity, no social media, no credit cards, no contact with the children she adored. She lived for and adored her children. A mother doesn't abandon 3 young children. She would not and did not leave voluntarily her children. The evidence was overwhelming. 25 witnesses, hundreds of exhibits, thousands of pages of documentation, all pointing to one conclusion: Larry Millete murdered his wife. On January 25, 2023, Judge Mooring issued his ruling. Despite the fact that her body has not been found, case law allows murder cases to proceed without the body's presence. The evidence presented demonstrates sufficient probable cause. Larry Millete was ordered to stand trial for first-degree murder, but getting to trial would prove to be its own nightmare, because Larry's defense team discovered they had a problem: money. In July 2023, 6 months after the preliminary hearing, Larry's attorney Benita Martinez filed a motion with the court. Larry couldn't afford to pay her anymore. The house Larry and Maya owned had equity of approximately $600,000. But that equity had to be split between Larry and Maya's conservator. Larry's half wasn't enough to cover the mounting legal bills. If he couldn't pay, a public defender would have to take over the case, which would mean starting from scratch, which would mean another year-long delay at minimum. The court was frustrated but had no choice. Constitutional right to adequate defense. Meanwhile, Larry sat in jail, but he wasn't just sitting quietly waiting for trial. In May 2021, just months after Maya disappeared, police received a disturbing report. During a check of Larry's home before his arrest, they'd found photographs on a table showing guns and ammunition, with Larry's 4-year-old son standing right next to them. A gun violence restraining order was issued. All remaining firearms were seized from the property. Larry was deemed a danger to himself and others. In October 2021, after his arrest, jail officials discovered Larry was violating rules. He'd been having his parents facilitate conversations with his children during phone calls, trying to maintain control over them even from behind bars. His phone privileges were curtailed, limited to attorney calls only. Larry underwent psychiatric evaluation in November 2021. Defense wanted to argue he wasn't competent to stand trial, that the stress had broken him, that he couldn't adequately assist in his own defense. The evaluation came back. Larry was fit to stand trial, competent, understanding of the charges, able to work with his attorneys, no mental illness, no psychotic break, Just a man who'd murdered his wife and was trying to avoid consequences. And so the delays began. Trial date after trial date. Each one postponed. Each one pushed back. First for prosecution to organize evidence. Then for defense attorney health issues. Then for family deaths in defense counsel's family. Then for defense needing more time to prepare. Judge after judge growing frustrated but granting the continuances anyway. And through it all, Larry sat in his cell. Maya's family kept searching. The children grew older without either parent. For years of waiting for justice that kept being delayed. While Larry sat in San Diego County Jail, another battle raged. A battle for Maya's children. A battle between two families who both claimed to love those kids but had very different ideas about what love meant. After Larry's arrest in October 2021, his parents Benito and Judith Millete immediately took custody of the three children. And they made a decision that would define the next 3 years. They refused to let Maya's family see them. No visits, no phone calls, no video chats, nothing. For months, Chris couldn't hug her nieces and nephew, couldn't tell them their mother loved them, couldn't assure them that Maya hadn't abandoned them the way Larry's parents were telling them. Maya's parents, Pablito and Noemi Talabanza, who lived in the Philippines, were desperate. They'd lost their daughter. Now they were losing access to their grandchildren too. They filed a petition for grandparent visitation rights in May 2021. It was a legal battle they shouldn't have had to fight. But Larry, even from jail, refused to cooperate. Refused to allow Maya's family any access to the children. Sheriff's deputies had to personally serve Larry papers in jail in August 2021 before he finally, grudgingly agreed to allow supervised visits. 3 hours per week. Sunday afternoons from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's it. 3 hours. Once a week. That's all Maya's parents got with their grandchildren. The children Maya had given birth to. The children Maya had loved more than anything. And during those 3 hours, the poison Larry's parents had been feeding the kids became obvious. The children were afraid of Maya's family. Flinched when Richard approached. Refused to be alone in a room with Chris. Had been taught that these people, their mother's family, were dangerous. Were lying about Larry. Were trying to turn them against their father. Larry's parents had spent months convincing 3 traumatized children that their maternal family was the enemy. Kelly James was appointed guardian ad litem in the case. Her job was to represent the children's best interests, to investigate both families, to recommend what would be best for 3 kids who'd lost their mother and whose father was in jail for murdering her. What James discovered was disturbing. She observed the visits between the children and Maya's family, saw how the oldest daughter would text Larry's parents during visits, saw the responses: lock the doors when Richard is around. Don't let them be alone with you. Remember what we told you about them. Active sabotage. Active undermining. Larry's parents weren't protecting the children. They were using them as weapons against Maya's family. James also discovered notes hidden in the children's rooms. Instructions on how to get out of visitations. What to say if the Drowlets asked questions about their mother. How to avoid talking about Maya at all. The children were being coached, controlled, manipulated the same way Larry had controlled and manipulated Maya. The custody battle dragged through 2022 and 2023. Legal delays, motions, counter-motions. Larry fighting from jail through expensive attorneys he could barely afford. His parents fighting in person through their own lawyers paid for by selling off property. All while Maya's family kept searching for her body, kept organizing weekend volunteer efforts, kept Maya's face on billboards across San Diego County, kept fighting to bring her home. Finally, in August 2024, 3.5 years after Maya disappeared, the custody trial began in earnest. Judge Frazier presided. A family court judge who'd seen countless custody battles, but nothing quite like this. Chris testified about what she could offer the children. A loving, stable home in Riverside. Therapy with qualified professionals. A chance to heal from trauma. Connection to their mother's memory. A future where they could process what happened instead of being told to forget their mother ever existed. I want to give them what Maya would have wanted, Chris said through tears. Maya loved those children more than anything. She died trying to protect them from Larry. The least I can do is make sure they know the truth about their mother. Larry's parents testified about raising the children for nearly 4 years since Larry's arrest, about maintaining them in the family home in Chula Vista, about keeping them in the same schools, about routine and stability and consistency. But Judge Frazier saw through it, saw what was really happening. Kelly James, the guardian ad litem, presented her findings to the court, and they were damning. The paternal grandparents have actively undermined the children's therapy, James reported. They've discouraged honest processing of trauma. They've prevented the children from discussing their mother. They've sabotaged visitation with maternal family through coaching and text messages during visits. James presented evidence. The text messages telling the oldest daughter to lock doors. The notes found in bedrooms with instructions on avoiding questions. The therapist's reports showing the children had been told not to talk about their mother in sessions. These children are being psychologically harmed by the very people claiming to protect them, James concluded. They need to be removed from this environment immediately. Judge Frazier also learned something that sealed his decision. The family home in Chula Vista, the house where Maya died, was in foreclosure. Larry's parents hadn't made mortgage payments in over a year. The property would be sold by the bank or foreclosed by the end of 2024. What's your plan if the house goes into foreclosure? Judge Frazier asked Benito Millete directly. Benito shrugged. A neighbor offered to let us move in with them. The judge's face showed his disbelief. You're planning to move 3 children from house to house, depending on neighbors' goodwill, and you claim that's stable? That's what's best for these kids. We're family, Benito insisted. These are our son's children. They belong with us. Your son is in jail for murdering their mother, Judge Frazier said bluntly. And you've spent 3 years poisoning these children against their mother's memory and her family. That's not stability. That's abuse. On August 13, 2024, Judge Frazier issued his ruling. His voice was firm, his decision final. The court grants guardianship to Chris Druelet. The paternal grandparents have failed these children emotionally by not supporting their therapy and by actively sabotaging their healing process. The children will transition to Ms. Druelet's home in Moreno Valley within 30 days. Maya's family had won. After 3 years of fighting, after 3 years of limited visits and coached children and doors locked against them. The children, now ages 8, 13, and 14, moved to Riverside County with Chris and her husband Richard in September 2024, away from the house where their mother died, away from grandparents who'd kept them from healing, away from the lies and manipulation and control. Today, in January 2025, those children are thriving in ways no one expected. They're doing really good in school, Richard Druelet told reporters in a January 2025 interview. All 3 are straight-A students now. They're in sports. They're in school clubs. They have friends. They're actually smiling again. That's the important thing. They're happy. They're healthy. The children have inherited Maya's love of music. All 3 play guitar, the same instrument Maya played. It's their way of connecting with the mother they barely remember but are finally allowed to talk about. They're amazing kids, Chris said, her voice thick with emotion. But I always feel like they could have so much more when they have their parents. These kids shouldn't be with me. They should be with Maya. They should have their mother. She paused, composing herself. Your kids deserve to know the truth, Larry. They don't have a dad anymore. They don't have a mom. You took that from them. You're missing out on watching them grow into incredible people. You're missing everything. Richard has a message for his brother-in-law sitting in jail awaiting trial. Your kids miss you. They're confused. They want their dad home, obviously. But more than that, they deserve to know where their mother is. They deserve to say goodbye to her. They deserve closure. Do the right thing, Larry. For once in your life, do the right thing. Tell us where Maya is. Larry has never responded, has never told investigators where Maya's body is hidden, has never given his children the closure they desperately need. From his cell, Larry watches as his children grow up without him. Watches as they thrive under Maya's family's care. Watches as they learn the truth about what he did. And he says nothing, reveals nothing, offers no remorse, no confession, no information about where Maya rests. That silence speaks volumes. As we continue, like, share, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. For years, 1,461 days, that's how long Maya's body has been missing. For years of searching, for years of hope slowly being crushed under the weight of reality. For years of knowing she's dead but having nowhere to grieve. The searches began immediately after Maya's disappearance. January 2021. While Larry was still free and living in that house with the children, Maya's family organized the first volunteer search party. They expected maybe a dozen people. Maybe some close friends and family who'd known Maya personally. Hundreds showed up. Friends, neighbors, complete strangers who'd seen Maya's face on the news and wanted to help. People who didn't know Maya but knew what it meant when a wife calls a divorce attorney and disappears the same day. They combed through Chula Vista, through nearby parks, through hiking trails Maya had walked, through neighborhoods, through undeveloped lots, checking dumpsters, checking storm drains, checking anywhere a body might be hidden. Nothing, not a trace, not a piece of clothing, not a phone, nothing. When Larry was arrested in October 2021, investigators finally had a better theory about where to search. They knew about the 11 hours on January 8th. Knew Larry had driven somewhere without his phone. Knew he'd told his neighbor he'd gone to Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. They calculated radius maps, plotted every location Larry could have reached within 11 hours round trip from Chula Vista. The search expanded dramatically, eastward into the desert, Imperial County, Anza-Borrego, vast, empty areas where temperatures can hit 120 degrees in summer and drop to freezing at night, where the harsh environment accelerates decomposition, where coyotes and other scavengers scatter remains, where bodies can lie for decades without being found. Cadaver dogs were deployed, German shepherds trained to detect the scent of human decomposition even years after death. They walked grid patterns across the desert, noses to the ground, alert for any trace of Maya. Nothing. Teams with ground-penetrating radar surveyed areas where the soil looked disturbed. Technology that can see underground, that can detect anomalies, that can find what's been buried. Nothing. Helicopters flew grid patterns over remote terrain. Thermal cameras scanning for heat signatures that might indicate decomposition gases. Visual sweeps looking for disturbed earth or unusual patterns. Nothing. They searched mountain areas north of San Diego, Cleveland National Forest, thousands of acres of wilderness, Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, places where dense vegetation makes visibility nearly impossible, where steep terrain makes access difficult, where hikers occasionally vanish and are never found. Nothing. They searched Otay Lakes, where Maya had hiked in the past with her children, where she'd taken photos of the beautiful scenery, where she'd told friends she felt peaceful. Divers checked the murky waters, going down 40, 50, 60 feet, searching in near-zero visibility. Professional divers who'd recovered bodies from lakes before. Sonar equipment scanned the depths. Technology that can map the bottom of a lake, that can detect large objects, that can find what the human eye can't see. Nothing. Every weekend for over a year, volunteers continued showing up. The numbers dwindled as time passed, as hope faded, as people returned to their normal lives and accepted that Maya probably wasn't going to be found. But a core group never quit. Mari, Chris, and Richard were there every single weekend, every single search, no matter the weather, no matter the location, no matter how hopeless it seemed. Maya's parents, when they could make the long trip from the Philippines, joined the searches. Elderly now, grieving, walking through desert heat and mountain terrain searching for their daughter's remains. Friends who'd known Maya, who'd laughed with her, who'd listened to her talk about her dreams of leaving Larry and starting over. They kept searching too. They've searched over 100 different locations now, covered thousands of square miles, walked until their feet bled, searched until the sun set and they couldn't see anymore. Found nothing, because Larry was careful, methodical. He had 11 hours and 444 miles to make absolutely certain Maya would never be found. And he succeeded. He disposed of her body in a location remote enough, buried deep enough, hidden well enough that 4 years of professional searching with the best technology available hasn't found her. Prosecutors don't need Maya's body to convict Larry. California law is clear. Murder charges can proceed without remains if other evidence is sufficient. And the evidence against Larry is overwhelming. But for the family, the lack of closure is unbearable torture. "I just want to bring her home," Mari Chris said in a January 2025 interview marking 5 years since Maya disappeared. Her voice cracked. Tears streamed down her face. "I want to give her a proper burial. I want the kids to have somewhere to visit their mom, somewhere to bring flowers, somewhere to say goodbye. It still feels like it's the first day every time," she continued. "Like I just found out she's gone. We can't move on. How do you move on when you don't know where she is? When you can't say goodbye? When there's no grave to visit?" The family holds vigils every year on January 7th, the anniversary of Maya's disappearance. They gather at Mount San Miguel Community Park in Chula Vista, the same park where some of the early searches began, where hundreds of volunteers once gathered to look for Maya. The community comes together, prays, remembers, promises not to forget. Rise for Maya, 5 years of hope and prayers, was the name of this year's event on January 17th, 2025. Families brought flowers. Children held balloons, purple and white, Maya's favorite colors. People who never met Maya came anyway because her story touched them. Because Maya represents something bigger than one woman's tragedy. She represents every woman who tried to leave an abusive relationship and didn't survive. Every wife who called a divorce attorney and was killed before she could file papers. Every mother who wanted to protect her children but couldn't protect herself. Every person who disappeared because someone decided they were worth more dead than divorced. Weekly searches continue even now. Smaller groups, mostly family and close friends. Maybe a dozen people instead of hundreds. But they keep looking. Keep hoping that maybe this weekend will be different. Keep believing that one day, Maya will come home. Larry watches these searches from his jail cell, has access to news coverage, knows his wife's family is desperately seeking what he's hidden, knows the children he claims to love want to say goodbye to their mother, and he says nothing, reveals nothing. An innocent man would want his wife found, would beg investigators to keep searching, would provide any information that might help, even if it didn't prove his innocence, even if it made him look bad. He'd want Maya found so his children could have closure. But Larry offers nothing. No hints. No suggestions. No areas to search. No confession. No remorse. Just silence. That silence proves his guilt as surely as any physical evidence. Because Larry knows exactly where Maya is. Knows exactly what he did with her body. Knows exactly how to end his children's suffering. And he chooses to let them suffer. Chooses to let them grow up without closure. Chooses to protect himself rather than give his children peace. That's not the behavior of an innocent man. That's the behavior of a murderer who's willing to let his own children suffer to avoid consequences. As of January 2026, Larry Millete sits in cell B14 of the San Diego County Jail. He's been there since October 19, 2021. Over 4 years. Over 1,500 days. Awaiting a trial that keeps getting postponed. The delays have been endless. Frustrating. Infuriating to Maya's family who've been waiting for justice since January 7, 2021. Defense attorneys keep requesting continuances. Each time with a different reason. Each time granted by judges who have no choice. Larry has a constitutional right to adequate time to prepare his defense. July 2022. First trial date set. Then postponed. Prosecution needed more time to organize evidence. January 2024. Second trial date. Postponed. Defense attorney Benita Martinez had health issues. July 2025. Third trial date. Postponed. Defense counsel's family deaths required time for grieving. January 2026. Fourth trial date. Postponed again. Defense claimed they needed more time to review discovery and hire experts. September 2026. Fifth trial date set. Then postponed yet again. March 9, 2026. Current trial date. Sixth attempt. Expected duration. 3 months. Judge Enrique Camarena has grown increasingly frustrated. At a September 2025 hearing, he made his feelings clear. The casual observer may reasonably opine that it appears there's little or no urgency to move forward with this case. But despite his frustration, he granted another delay. Because the law is clear. Larry has rights. Constitutional rights that must be protected even when the delays cause unbearable pain to Maya's family. Defense attorneys insist this will be the final postponement. The trial will begin March 9, 2026. They'll be ready. No more delays. Maya's family has heard this before, but they have no choice except to wait, to hope, to pray that this time, finally, justice will be served. If the trial actually happens in March 2026, Larry faces 2 serious charges. Count 1, first-degree murder of Maya Millete. Maximum sentence, 25 years to life in state prison. Count 2, illegal possession of an assault weapon. Additional years to be served consecutively. Prosecutors have spent 4 years preparing an overwhelming case. District Attorney Summer Stephan's office has organized thousands of pages of documents, hundreds of exhibits, dozens of witnesses ready to testify. The evidence they'll present. 70 spellcaster emails showing Larry's obsession with controlling Maya through magic. Emails requesting spells to hurt Maya, break her bones, give her cancer. Review Larry left for spellcaster. My casting has not yet manifested, but I'm really hoping. Maya's final text to Larry. I don't want to be your wife anymore. I'm filing whether you like it or not. Phone call Maya made to divorce attorney on January 7th at 10 a.m. 9 gunshots heard by neighbors at 9:57 p.m. that same day. Children playing outside at 10 p.m. while Maya died inside. Missing .40 caliber Springfield XDM handgun Larry claims he sold but can't prove. Larry's phone powered off for 11 hours on January 8th. Surveillance showing black Lexus leaving at 6:45 a.m. January 8th. 444 unaccounted miles driven that day. Larry's story changing multiple times about where he went. Neighbor testimony. Larry mentioned Anza Borrego Desert. Request to neighbor to detail the vehicle after the trip. No evidence Maya left the property alive after January 7th. Maya's phone left in house, never used again after that day. No bank activity, no credit cards, no social media after January 7th. Subliminal message speakers and hidden phones throughout house. Searches for subliminal wife training on Larry's devices. Searches for poison plants. Plants you take to never wake up. Water hemlock. Searches for date rape drugs. Flunitrazepam. Rohypnol. Diphenhydramine. Tracking phone hidden in Maya's car. Larry's offer to pay $20,000 to get the guy he thought Maya was seeing. Text to supervisor hours before Maya died. I'm not right. I'm about to lose it. Video Maya secretly recorded of Larry accusing her of affair. Testimony from friends about Larry showing up unannounced at Maya's workplace. Testimony about Larry choking Maya until she passed out. Testimony about Maya moving in with sister-in-law to escape, only to be brought back. Witchcraft altar found in the home with Maya's photos. Blood found in the home, though not Maya's. Letter Maya wrote documenting Larry's abuse. Psychiatric evaluation showing Larry was competent and fit for trial. Gun violence restraining order issued due to weapons near children. Evidence of Larry violating jail rules to maintain control over children. The defense has a nearly impossible task. They must create reasonable doubt with a case this strong. Defense attorney Benita Martinez has previewed her strategy in pretrial motions. No body means no proof of death. Maya could have run away. Maya was having an affair with a coworker. She had reasons to disappear. Larry threatened to reopen an investigation at her workplace that would expose her lies to NCIS. She was in a tight spot and needed to vanish. Everything the prosecution has is circumstantial. No direct evidence. Larry sold the gun legally in a private sale. No paperwork required. The spellcasters prove Larry wanted Maya to stay, not die. Larry's internet searches were him trying to understand Maya's behavior. Reasonable doubt exists, but defense can't explain the things that matter most. Why did Maya leave her phone in the house if she ran away? How would she navigate to a new location without GPS? Why did she never contact her children she adored? Why has she never used her bank accounts or credit cards? Why did 9 gunshots ring out from Larry's house the same day Maya disappeared? Why was Larry's phone off for 11 hours the next day? Why did Larry drive 444 unaccounted miles that day? Why did Larry's story about January 8th change multiple times? Why did Larry stop buying spells for Maya after January 7th? Why did Larry search for ways to poison someone? Before Maya disappeared? Legal experts who have followed this case closely believe conviction is likely. It is not a Hail Mary or particularly challenging that there's no body, said Paul Pfingst, former San Diego County District Attorney who prosecuted multiple no-body murder cases. Depending on the strength of the circumstantial evidence, the prosecution generally succeeds in achieving a conviction. This case has extremely strong circumstantial evidence, Pfingst continued. The timeline alone is damning. Maya calls a divorce attorney at 10 a.m. 9 hours later, gunshots are heard from the house. The next day, Larry drives 444 miles with his phone off. Then Maya is never seen or heard from again. That's not a coincidence. Criminal defense attorney Gretchen von Helms, who has been following the case, noted the obvious. After 5 years, it's really difficult to argue that Maya is somewhere else living a new life. She obviously has to not be alive anymore, because she would have contacted her children. No mother abandons 3 young children without ever contacting them again. That's not how human nature works. The defense can argue all they want about affairs and needing to disappear, but juries understand mother-child bonds. They won't believe Maya voluntarily left those kids. The trial will be held at Chula Vista Superior Court. Judge Enrique Camarena presiding. A jury of 12 San Diego County residents will decide Larry's fate. Jury selection will take several days. Both sides will question potential jurors extensively, looking for bias, looking for people who've already formed opinions, looking for 12 people who can be fair. Finding an unbiased jury will be challenging. This case has received extensive media coverage locally and nationally. Most San Diego County residents have heard of Maya Millete. Many have opinions about Larry's guilt. But attorneys will find 12 people, 12 citizens who will listen to weeks of testimony, who will review hundreds of exhibits, who will ultimately decide, did Larry Millete murder his wife? Opening statements will likely begin mid-March 2026. Prosecutors will lay out their timeline, show the jury exactly how Larry planned Maya's murder, how he researched methods, how he bought spells, how he killed her when magic didn't work, how he disposed of her body in 11 hours. Defense will argue reasonable doubt, will suggest Maya ran away, will try to convince the jury that circumstantial evidence isn't enough. Then witnesses will testify, week after week, building the case piece by piece. Closing arguments will be powerful. Prosecutors will summarize everything, will show the jury the complete picture, will ask for justice for Maya, for her children, for every woman who tried to leave an abusive marriage and paid with her life. The jury will deliberate, could take days, could take weeks. Then they'll return with a verdict. If convicted, and legal experts say conviction is highly likely, Larry will be sentenced to 25 years to life. He's 44 years old now. He'll be at least 69 before he's even eligible for parole. And given the circumstances of Maya's murder, parole boards are unlikely to ever release him. Larry will die in prison. Will spend the next 40, 50, maybe 60 years in a cell. Will never raise his children. Will never watch them graduate high school. Will never walk them down the aisle. Will never meet his grandchildren. He'll have visits from his parents initially, but they're elderly. They'll pass away within the next decade or two. Then Larry will be truly alone. His children may visit at first, especially the youngest, who was only 4 when Maya disappeared. But as they get older, as they understand more fully what their father did, those visits will stop. Eventually, Larry will be a forgotten man in a forgotten cell. No visitors, no letters, no connection to the outside world. That's the price of murder. That's what Larry chose when he decided killing Maya was easier than letting her divorce him. But Maya's family will finally have justice. Not closure. They'll never have closure without Maya's body, without being able to bury her properly, without that final goodbye. But they'll have justice. They'll know Larry was held accountable, that 12 people heard the evidence and agreed. Larry Millete murdered his wife in cold blood. And maybe, just maybe, facing life in prison with nothing left to lose, Larry will finally tell them where Maya is. This happened before. Murderers who stayed silent for years finally confessing when they have no reason to keep the secret anymore. When they're already serving life without parole. When they've lost everything and have nothing left to protect. Maybe Larry will have one moment of humanity left. One moment where he thinks about his children growing up without knowing where their mother is. One moment where he does the right thing and gives them closure. But most experts don't think Larry will ever talk. He's held out for over 4 years. Maintained his innocence through preliminary hearings, through motions, through endless court appearances. Never wavered. Never cracked. He'll probably die in prison 40 years from now, still claiming Maya ran away. Still insisting he's innocent. Still refusing to give his children the peace they deserve. Where things stand now, January 2026, Larry Millete, in custody, San Diego County Jail, Cell B14. Trial start, March 9, 2026, 6th scheduled date. Expected duration, 3 months. Charges, first-degree murder plus illegal weapons possession. Potential sentence, life without meaningful possibility of parole. Plea not guilty. Maya's body, still missing after 5 years. The children, living with Maricris and Richard, ages 9, 14, 15, thriving. The search, continuing every weekend despite no results. The timeline, January 7th, 2021, 10 a.m. Maya calls divorce attorney. January 7th, 2021, 9:57 p.m. 9 gunshots heard from Millete house. January 8th, 2021. Larry's phone off 11 hours, 444 unaccounted miles. January 9th, 2021. Family reports Maya missing. October 19th, 2021. Larry arrested, charged with first-degree murder. January 2023. Preliminary hearing, bound over for trial. August 2024. Maricris wins custody of children. January 7th, 2026. 5-year anniversary of disappearance. March 9th, 2026. Trial scheduled to begin. June 2026. Potential verdict. As this case approaches trial, Maya's family continues fighting. Weekly searches despite years of failure. Annual vigils keeping Maya's memory alive. Raising 3 children with love and therapy. Hoping Larry will finally tell them where Maya is. We will never stop searching, Maricris said 5 years after her sister vanished. We will never stop fighting. Maya deserves justice. Her children deserve answers. Richard added, "You're missing out on watching your kids grow up, Larry. They're amazing, but they have a hole in their hearts where their mom should be. Only you can give them closure. Only you know where she is. Do the right thing." Subscribe for trial updates when it begins March 2026. Type justice if you believe Larry Millete will be convicted. Type MOIA to honor her memory and the search that continues. The trial hasn't happened yet. The verdict isn't in. But the evidence speaks for itself. The question isn't guilt. It's whether a jury will convict without a body. We'll know in approximately 60 days when the trial finally begins. Rest in peace, Maya Millete. Your family hasn't forgotten. Your children remember you loved them. And justice is coming.